this channel is dead. But this is an honest attempt to revive it. So in the couple of years since I last stopped carving, I did not really stop carving. I changed the scale of my project. I started making a couple of cutting boards, incense holder, a small scale project because I do not have much time as I did before. This is an attempt to revive the channel. I will see what the engagement is on these videos, but this is going to be a step-by-step guide or a follow-along to make Anduril, the Flames of the West, Aragorn's sword in the Lord of the Rings movies. Over the years I have been asked the same question over and over again. What kind of wood I use and where do I find it? So I have the luck to have a stack of lumber that my father had milled 15 or 20 years ago that has been drying in the attic here over that time. It is mainly pine, 1 inch thick boards, and I had a couple of boards that were 2 inches thick. That is what I mainly use for my different projects over the year. Mixed with that, I had a couple of boards of walnut. There were boards of yellow birch that I used for my first frostmourne that I made. Through my work I have access to maple, curly maple, bird's eye maple. Same thing with the ash. I have access to 1 inch thick boards. I have access to oak, and over the last week I managed to grab a couple of boards of cherry wood. So I don't know yet what I'm going to do with this, but I have some plans on my mind. I also have a stack of maple, walnut and pine that is currently sitting outside, air drying. It's been there for a couple of seasons now. It's kind of ready to use. I believe there is still a somewhat high level of humidity in the wood, but for what I'm making I think it has dried enough for now. The second question I get asked quite a lot is how do I make my templates and how do I make my plans? I use an old program called Fireworks. It works just like Photoshop. I just don't have access to Photoshop. So you could use those programs to make the outline and print the outline, or you can just use Microsoft Paint and scale up the image you want to print. It's just gonna use a lot more of ink that way, but I prefer to do the outline and give me a clearer image to cut out on my boards. If you don't have access to stacks of lumber like I do, I think Home Depot has a decent supply of wood that you can use. I know they carry boards of 1 inch thick milled pine. You can have plain pine, but I don't think it's that useful because you're going to sand it down and shape it anyway. And I do believe they hold some 2 inch thick pine as well. So you can make the crossguard and the pommel with that wood. That's mainly why I use 2 inch boards here. So the first step of the project is to gather the materials you're going to need. So I found this board of pine that I'm going to use for the blade. It has uneven thickness. It's a bit thicker here than here, but for the blade I'm going to thin it down quite a bit. So it's going to be perfect. It has a crack running through it, but I don't mind because I'm going to use the material on the side of it and down it. I have a wormhole, I think, going right through, but I think I'm able to use the board even if it has it. I'm going to try and go around that hole. I'm just going to check how my template fits on that board. So I can fit beside the crack without any issue, and I don't even reach the wormhole, but I'm planning to use a an extension on the blade so it can go through the crossguard and through the pommel, so it's a bit stiffer. But I don't think the wormhole is going to be an issue with that. Next, for the crossguard, I found a 2-inch thick piece that is a cutoff from another project. It has a knot on the piece, but I don't think I'm going to reach that for the piece I need. So using the templates, I know I have the correct width, and as I thought, I am not going to reach the knot on the wood, so that's a perfect piece for that crossguard. For the pommel, I have found another piece of 2-inch thick board that is also a cutoff from a different project. It has quite a large knot on it, but I don't plan on using that part. The last piece that I used for the crossguard was not wide enough for the pommel, so I was lacking material. It was not proper for that use. But this one, I have quite a lot of material to use. I don't know yet where I'm planning to cut it. I don't know, but I do know that I'm going to use that piece for that pommel for the Flame of the West. And finally, for the handle that I need for the Anduril, I'm going to use a piece of walnut. I have a board sticking out of my stack of wood, and it was used before for different projects. As you can see, there are saw lines already going through it, but I think that part is going to be enough for my handle. So I'm going to use the templates, make it fit on there. It is barely long enough, but that's okay with me, and it is wide enough for that use. So I'm going to use the my jigsaw and cut a rough outline and take the piece away so I can work on it with the other 3 pieces. And that is going to be the perfect size for that sword. So the next step is to draw the outline of what I'm planning to use, so I can cut it down to size. It does not have to be really precise. I just need to have a rough outlook. I'm going to sand it down and shape it as I need after the cuts are done. The first one is done. And I'm going to do the same thing for the crossguard and the pommel. I'm going to do the guard first. So the guard is now done. Next is the pommel. Looking at the grain of the wood, you can see it's going that way quite a lot. I don't think I like to be in the more parallel part of the wood. I try to be more in the 45 degrees. It's going to give a nicer look, so I'm going to stick on that side of that piece of wood. And I try to put the part parallel to the grain of the wood. I try not to get a cross grain, because it's going to break that way if I do that. So I'm trying to be as straight as possible with that grain of the wood. And I have the pommel drawn out on my lumber. So I'm going to use that side of the board because the crack is going at an angle, and I have much less material on that side than on that side. So I have a better look at what I have to work with. I can see I have more wormholes in that board. I don't know what it's going to look like on the blade, so I'm going to try and be between the wormholes and the crack. So I have a hole here, here, here. I try to fit the blade between. I get close to the crack. Right here I go between the both wormholes. I don't touch the crack, and if I extend the blade a bit farther, I don't touch any holes either. And why I do this is to get it through the crossguard and through the handle. And I lost my template, but I want it to get through the pommel as well, so everything holds up together. I've got the rough shape of the blade drawn up on that board. And I'm going to use something to draw out some kind of straight lines so I can use it, so the blade holds up together. So I was looking to see if the lines of the blades were kind of straight on either side. The right one is kind of curving on the center. I'm going to fix that when I'm going to saw the wood. And the tip that I made the farther at the back is kind of straight, so it's going to hold just well through the different parts. So the next step is to cut the board, the parts that I have drawn. So for that purpose, I'm going to use a jigsaw. It's going to do a quick cut through that pine. The hardest part is going to be the 2-inch thick piece of lumber I took, because the reach of the blade is about 2 inch, and it tends to bend a little bit when I try to turn the cuts. But let's see what result I can get. So I'm going to make a rough cut just so I can get most of the material off. I have my blade here. I'm going to cut the extension that I'm planning to use on the other parts. And now I'm going to cut the body of the blade. So the body of the blade is mainly done. I'm going to need to thin it quite a little bit, because this part is quite larger than this one. I don't think I want to use the jigsaw to do this. I'm planning to use a wood file to thin out this part. I'm going to use the file as well for this part, because I need to have a round half-inch core that I can use to assemble the other part. So I'm going to cut out the 3 parts of the guard and pommels. I'm going to carefully cut the handle to shape. It's not quite large. So the best tool that I could use to cut that is a bandsaw. That would be more safe and more effective, but what I have is a jigsaw, so I'm trying not to put my finger in the way of the blade. So the handle part is cut to shape. I'm also going to use a file to shape it down to give it a more rounded look. Now for the crossguard, it's the first 2-inch thick part that I need to cut. So the crossguard is mainly cut to shape. I'm going to shave it quite a bit so it fits nicely with the other parts. And now down to the last part, the pommel. Alright, so I now have the rough cut made on the 4 parts of my blade, and the next step is to make the hole through the 3 other parts and round up that bit so everything fits up nicely without starting to carve the rest. I want everything straight before I start adding the details. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a piece of pine. I'm going to drill a 1/2 inch hole through it. What I'm going to do with that hole is I'm going to file down that part of the blade so it gets round and the correct diameter so I can fit this part through that hole. And when it's done, I'm going to drill holes of 1/2 inch diameter through the other 3 parts of the blade so everything fits up nicely. Right now I look to be a bit too thick on each side. Let's try again. A bit thick. It's starting to come through. And I don't want to force it because I don't want to break it. Try to fit again. This is good, this is good, this is good, and we are good up to the blade. The next part is to make the hole in the 3 other parts of the sword without breaking anything. I'm going to try and make a exit hole on that side of the crossguard. I'm going to drill the other side. So I don't need to be very precise for now because I can adjust the width of the notch I'm doing right now when I try to fit the blade on it. So it should not have too much importance how rough it is right now. The important part is to give enough space on each side so I can work later with that part. I'm going to pre-drill the hole. So I decided to go straight through on that side, just so I could be as straight as I could be with the two side pieces. And it is kind of centered. I can wiggle it as I need, and it should be okay. And I can see I have a bit more of meat I can use to shape the blade, and I should be okay and not have a gap at the end. And now for the handle. I'm going to mark the center on that side. So I'm going to try and drill as much in the center as I can, and try to get out as much in the center as I can on the other side. About dead center on the other side, so that's kind of nice. And that handle is going to fit nicely on, it's a bit tight. I try not to break everything. So. All the way up, fits nicely. A bit tight on the exit, that's good. Alright, and now the last hole I need to drill. I need it to be quite straight in line with the pommel as much as possible. So by eye, I want it right there. So right here. Let's go. I think I can manage, but I'm a bit off. So, cross guard, I'm going to work on that a bit later. Handle. And pommel. a bit long. I'm going to cut it down right now. I'm trying to remove it without breaking it apart. Okay. About 2 inch. So now everything kind of fits together, and I need the shaping now of the blade and the guard and the handle and the pommel. I need to thin out the pommel so it fits, but it's going quite well. So I think I'm going to end part 1 here. The next part is going to be mainly about the blade and the crossguard, or maybe I can manage to do the 4 parts all at the same time. But for now, that's going to be it. I've got the rough outline of my blade done. Yeah. Pretty pleased by what I'm seeing right now. It went way smoother than I first thought.